So qualifying for the Austrian Grand Prix is done, and out in Q1 was Stroll, Ocon, Tsunoda, Sainz and Hulkenberg. Stroll will be starting in P16 and I expected more from him. I was expecting him to be around Q2 at the very least, maybe around where Alonso is. If you watch my predictions, you will have seen that I thought that Stroll would outqualify Alonso for the first time since the British Grand Prix last year. That did not happen. But there was logic to that. Stroll is very good around the Red Bull Ring. Since 2019, he's been knocked out in Q1 twice. The last time that happened was in 2022, where he was knocked out in Q1 alongside Sebastian Vettel, but he outqualified Sebastian Vettel in that qualifying session. Before that, it was 2019, and he lost to Perez, but both racing points got knocked out in Q1. So I was expecting more from Stroll, but can he be too disappointed with P16? Not really. Esteban Ocon is starting in P17. He's another driver which I was expecting more from. Haas is normally very good around here. I was expecting him to do what Hulkenberg did last year in the main race and main qualifying, but that didn't happen. He got outqualified by his rookie teammate, and Haas just haven't looked strong around here at all. Esteban Ocon is normally quite good around here as well. He's not been out in Q1 since 2021, however, he has been in an Alpine, which isn't really a car that gets knocked out in Q1 very often in previous years. This year is a different story. Starting P18 is Yuki Tsunoda, and he is struggling, which at this point is to be expected, but should a Red Bull be going out in Q1? Not really. However, he is making an improvement. He is normally 7.5 tenths off Verstappen in a qualifying run. This time he was only 2.5 tenths off, which is closer, but the lap's shorter, so he still got knocked out in Q1. On the back row, we've got Carlos Sainz, who looked to be struggling as well. But his looked like an issue with his car. He seemed like he was struggling to turn into corners, and it'd take multiple jabs at the steering wheel to actually rotate the car, which could suggest that he was carrying damage, but I'm not sure if he was yet. I haven't seen the interview. I don't know if he is carrying damage. And in last is Nico Hulkenberg. A very, very disappointing session for him. He's miles off his rookie teammate who's not scored yet this season. He was 5 tenths slower than Gabriel Bortoleto, and he was over 3 tenths slower than his FP3 time, which shows how much time there was to find on that lap. Hulkenberg is normally incredible at this circuit, and clearly the car was there, but he couldn't find the time. In his last 4 qualifying sessions at this track, he's made 3 Q3 appearances in a Haas. And normally since he's in a Sauber, you're not expecting much. But if Gabriel Bortoleto got into Q3, imagine what Hulkenberg could have done with that car. Getting knocked out in Q2 was Alonso, Albon, Hadjar, Colapinto and Behrman. For Fernando Alonso, I think he had a great result. He's looked worse than Stroll this weekend up until now, and I really thought he'd struggle this weekend. But to be less than a tenth off Q3, I think that's a really, really good result for him. In P12 is Alex Albon. I thought he'd do so much better. I thought he'd comfortably get into Q3, but clearly the car wasn't there this weekend. However, I have seen him outperform that Williams so many times in the last few years. Like in 2023, he managed to come in the top 10 in Austria. So I thought maybe he could outperform that car a bit more. But it looks like that's about where the car is this weekend, and it's not really suited to this track. In P13 is Isaac Hadjar. He was beaten by Liam Lawson for just the second time this season. He would be disappointed with that result. However, I think he will still have a great race. If you haven't watched my preview and predictions video, then you won't know about the 2023 F2 sprint race, where he started P21 on the grid and finished with a podium. He is good around this track, hence why I predicted him to have a great race. So I think, even though P13 is disappointing and he's behind his teammate, I think he will improve in the race and still potentially finish in the points. In P14 is Franco Colapinto. He looked like he was going to struggle this weekend. He was sitting at the back of the practice sessions. It looked uninspiring. Alpine looked terrible. He has done worse than Gasly, but getting into Q2, I think he should be satisfied with P14. P15 is Ollie Behrman, and I think he can be happy with that result. He's beaten Ocon, he's into Q2, and the Haas isn't great around here this year. So I think he can be happy. It's just disappointing to see how far back the Haas are to where we thought they would be at the start of the week. Now, into Q3. The top 10 is Norris, Leclerc, Piastri, Hamilton, Russell, Lawson, Verstappen, Bortoleto, Antonelli, and Gasly. Normally I'd go first to 10th, but I feel like I have to talk about 10th place first. Pierre Gasly. He was having a really good qualifying session. He looked like he could have qualified about 8th, but when it came to finishing his final run, he had a 720 pirouette and kind of ruined the qualifying session. In terms of his qualifying, I think P10 is better than I thought it'd do. P8 was definitely possible, but he should count himself lucky that he didn't hit the barrier, considering he did a double 360. So Lando Norris is on pole by the biggest pole margin of the year so far. He set a brilliant lap and was mostly uncontested for pole. I think even if the likes of Piastri and Verstappen could finish their lap uninterrupted, I think he still would have gotten pole. But this was a statement lap for Lando Norris at one of his favourite tracks. In P2 was Charles Leclerc, and that was a great lap. Is the Ferrari the second best car this weekend? I don't think so, so I am surprised the Ferraris have done so well. But it's a great surprise. I'm very happy that we're seeing Leclerc P2 and Hamilton in P4. Is this the time that we see Ferrari actually making a challenge to McLaren? I don't think so. They are still 5/10 slower than... Does this now mean that Ferrari are in the fight for the constructors? Will they be fighting for race wins with McLaren? No. They're still at least 5/10 slower than the McLarens. So Ferrari fans, do not get your hopes up. P3 on the grid is Oscar Piastri. He seemed to be affected by Gasly's spin. When Gasly had a spin, he hadn't crossed the line, but I'm assuming coming around the final corner, it was still under double yellows. He couldn't get the speed he wanted to, so that lap was irrelevant, and he couldn't have the chance to try and beat Norris's time. Would he have gotten it anyway? No. What was the maximum he could have came? Probably about P2. But starting P3 on the grid, it is still very possible that he can win. P4 is Lewis Hamilton in the other Ferrari. I'm very happy for him to get so high up the grid on merit. He should be very proud of putting that Ferrari in P4. George Russell is in P5. Considering that the Mercedes doesn't like warmer temperatures, he's done quite well to put it in P5. I expected them to be a bit further to the front, but clearly the Mercedes' operating window is cooler than it was out there then, which means I think they could struggle in the race tomorrow. In P6 is Liam Lawson in the other Racing Bulls. He maximised the performance there. He got lucky that Verstappen's behind him. Other than that, he could have came P7. It was a great lap from him and fully deserved. He needed the good weekend at Red Bull's home race, and he's gotten it so far. It'll be interesting to see where he can finish tomorrow. I think a points finish is the best he can hope for. I don't think he can hang on to P6, but a points finish would do him very good. P7 is Max Verstappen. When he came into the final sector, it was double yellows because of Gasly's spin, so he had to back off. So the question is, would he have gotten pole? No. Could he have came second? Maybe. He was 0.137 down on Norris's first lap at the end of sector 2. So he would have been, if he maintained that gap throughout the rest of the lap, he would have ended up being about 0.4 down, which would have kept him about P2. So I think he would have ended up being about P2, P3 on the grid without Gasly's spin. Bortoleto in P8 is a brilliant qualifying result for him. I don't think he could hope for much more. It's his best qualifying result of the season in his F1 career. We maybe expected Hulkenberg to be doing that, but to see it from Bortoleto as a rookie is incredible. He'd be very, very proud about that. It'll be interesting to see whether he can hang on for points. But yeah, that was a very, very good performance from Bortoleto. Antonelli in P9. I thought he'd struggle this weekend. P9, when you've got a Sauber and a V-Carb ahead of you, isn't great. It'd be acceptable if it was Hulkenberg and Hadjar, but it being Bortoleto and Lawson, it seems a bit worse. I thought he'd struggle. He has struggled. He just needs to hope he can make it up in the race, but I feel like the Mercedes are going to struggle once again. We'll see if he can make inroads or not. So my standout driver performance for this qualifying session is between Lawson and Bortoleto. I think I'm going to give it to Liam Lawson. P6, when he's had a terrible season, he's only one place above Bortoleto in the championship, and it's his second time beating his teammate this season. And although Bortoleto had a great qualifying compared to his teammate, I'm going to give it to Lawson. The standout performance from a team is Ferrari. Compared to what I thought they'd do, P2, P4 is incredible. The driver which had the most disappointing qualifying, in my opinion, is Nico Hulkenberg. He's been great so far this season, 11th in driver standings. I had such high expectations of him, starting 20th tomorrow, when I had such high expectations for him, and he's been doing so well. He is the most disappointing driver. For a team, I've gone for Williams. Again, I thought Williams would do so much better than they did. Carlos Sainz in 19th is not a good result. Even if he had damage, 19th is still not a good result. And Alex Albon in 12th, considering how he's done so far this season, again, I think that's pretty disappointing. I just feel like there was more on the table for Williams than what they achieved. So they're my disappointing team for the qualifying. I think that's about it. So subscribe, and I will see you after the race.